Hello, I'm ABX Toycat, and welcome back to Deep in the Mind. Today, I'm incredibly excited about my guest because he's someone who actually helps to develop Minecraft, so there's some really interesting conversations about realms and parity, and about everything to do with that we can actually have a real talk on, and so that is what the next hour or so will be. Let's jump into it. So David, you are one of the two dev leads for Minecraft Realms.
Yes, I'm dev lead for the Realms client.
Yeah, that
Play on your consoles and your phones.
which is kind of the big thing. And also, you have done other things at Mojang, right?
Yes, I've been at Mojang since 2018, and I worked on authentication, identity, like signing in, what's your account, all that sort of thing. I've worked on Realms. I've also dabbled in other stuff as side projects. I fixed a couple parity bugs for a while.
The
Like
hotbar
stuff
one,
like
right?
the seagrass color. Yeah, the hotbar was off by
Oh,
one pixel.
yes. Therefore, you've immediately won the respect of everyone here. Like, okay, that's that one. The moment someone points it out to you, you can never unsee it. And so, thank you. You are our collective heroes.
Was it? Yeah, someone pointed out to me, and I'm like, now I see this is off every time I play the game. So it wasn't that one wasn't even that hard to fix. It was just like one of those bugs where it's like, okay, something else is crashing, and the hotbar is off by one pixel. Which one? Let's fix the crashing. So it wasn't my ownership area. I was busy with other things, so I was like, oh, I can swoop in and fix this low priority but high visibility bug.
That that's actually one of the things that I think is impressive about what you're doing with Realms is that every single big priority bug you would assume is like, oh, this server is accidentally billing someone, this server is accidentally crashing, and you're managing to stay on top of all of those, make a reliable service. But also, you say that the service is now a lot more hack-free than it has been before, and that is something that I thought was really exciting.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that you want to balance. It's just like in vanilla game development, they're trying to balance like, well, creative players really like this, and people who are roving adventurers really like that, or people who are really into Redstone like something else. Realms is the same sort of thing. There's different types of people that have realms. Sometimes it's people like me or you who are very invested in Minecraft, and maybe we have these servers with lots of people playing on them. Then sometimes you have maybe a parent with kids, and the kids like playing Minecraft, and the parent doesn't really care about Minecraft. They just want to, pay for a server for the kids to play on. So you got to take all of it into account, and then you also have to balance like service reliability issues with things like, hey, it's been a while since we've had an exciting new feature. Let's add a new feature that's going to draw attention and get people excited.
That to me is the fun thing about Realms is you're operating with all of the Minecraft default constraints, but you're also trying to build on top of it. And I think your job sounds like it has a lot of different fun elements to it. Because Realms isn't just one service, right? It's really two very different, services for two different games, and they have very different expectations of what you get with a realm. I always remember that the Java version just has a bunch of maps that are rotating in and out, whereas with Bedrock it's Realms Plus, so there's a bunch of
Yeah.
marketplace maps that you get, and even texture packs and skins and all that stuff. So I was wondering,
Yeah.
when you consider adding a feature, do you have to consider working it for both versions, or do you just like if it's a cool Bedrock feature, it comes there. If it's a cool Java feature, it comes there. How does that work with regards to Realms in particular?
Oh, that's tricky. It's a good question. So some things are easy to share between versions. Obviously, from a broad perspective, for Minecraft as a whole, we have this one Minecraft philosophy. So we want you to be playing one game, whether you're playing Java Edition or Bedrock Edition. Obviously, if you have played the game a lot and you know a lot of details about, wait, how does redstone work? Like, oh, quasi connectivity. Oh, wait, but that's here, but not there. Like, there's a ways to go on the complete parity journey. But generally speaking, like if you fire up Java Edition, if you fire up Bedrock Edition, you're like, oh, let me go to an ancient city, let me run away from a war. Like those are the same experiences you're having. The realms, some we would like you to have the same realms experience, but it's tricky because the clients are really different. And for instance, there's some new stuff we're working on for realms where it has lots of new user interface. There's lots of new like buttons and cute graphics and things you interact with, and the whole UI system, which it's actually open source or UI. You can go look it up, Mojang Studios GitHub repo, but it's a basically runs web pages in a really high performance way. So you can have a web page as your game interface.
Oh.
And so it's this whole big system that's very involved. And then on Java Edition, it's just very different. They have a very old legacy UI system. So like you build something in Bedrock, it's like, oh, I can't directly port this over.
Hmm.
Whereas, other areas of the game, we've made a lot of effort to make it so you build it once and you can mostly move it between the versions. As far as Realms, the service side, so where you're spinning up these virtual machines that are running a dedicated server, well, there's a lot of similarities between how the Java side works and the Bedrock side works. And a lot of that stuff, you're building something new, like, okay, let's build it for both Java and Bedrock at the same time. But there are distinctions and some stuff, like the way you initialize a realm is a little different between Java and Bedrock. If
I,
you do a purchase, like in Bedrock, you're buying it in the game, and then you get sent to your platform store, like the Apple Store, the Google Play Store, and you're
mhm.
spending money there. In Java, you're going to Minecraft.net, and you're buying it on our webpage, and then you get forwarded to the game.
The
So
most interesting part of that, because I do agree the whole store UI, like, there's so many parts of that you accidentally realize when it goes wrong, like, oh, this was meant to hook into Xbox Live, or this was meant to hook into Nintendo Switch Online. So those are always interesting spots when you see those. But the most interesting kind of parity difference that is interesting to me, because it's that classic example of it's been done by modders, so why can't Mojang do it? I bet there is a good reason. Why can't Java and Bedrock connect on the same realm? If I have a Java realm, I have a Bedrock realm. Is there a really good pertinent reason that jumps out to you, or is it just it's a huge slog to do correctly and one day could be done, or is it like, yeah, there's no realistic near path for that?
it, I think, yeah, it's, like you said, there's a whole topic that comes up in the community a lot. Like, well, modders can do this in 2 days, so Mojang takes 2 years. Why? And
It's because you're all lazy. You're all taking too many breaks.
yeah,
I see you
clearly,
back
yeah,
there. Why are you not in the factory right now? You have a
yeah. I
curtain. You've
spend
got too many luxuries in your life. I bet you even slept last night when you should have been in the update factory, pounding out the update, making that new mob.
ding, 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 yeah, my pickaxe. Yeah.
That's how it works. Trust me, I've seen it. I've seen it. You have you're not down in the factory for enough hours. You're not grinding on those features. But more seriously, yeah, what that is a classic thing if it's been done by modders. I'm sure in a hacky fashion, but it works to the user end pretty convincingly. Like you don't know until you use an exclusive feature that it's only a Java realm or it's only a Bedrock service rather. Is there a good reason that jumps out to you that it shouldn't or can't be done too easily on the realm side?
So it's interesting. So first to lead into the answer, so for gameplay, King B Dogs had excellent answer because he's been a very prominent modder in Minecraft for
Yeah.
years and working on the Aether, and then he's been a very prominent Mojang developer as well. Very key part in the ancient cities and some other stuff in the game. So he has answered this at length on Twitter, talking about like there's
He has a
different.
great
Basically, it
answer.
boils
I
down
agree. Yeah,
to
like
yeah, there's different standards for something that's a quick mod. Like, oh, what if I had a grappling hook to the game? That sounds fun. I mean, I personally think the grappling hook might be fun in Minecraft. So like you could add it in, and there's mods that add stuff like that. But then you're like, well, Mojang, the bundle is taking forever. Why isn't the bundle in the game? It's because if you're designing a game that's a base for what you want to build off of for years and years to come, and you want to be able to add something new every single year, you have to be very deliberate about like, I want to add something that's going to be a super solid foundation for years to come, not something that's going to be, hey, this is cool right now, let's add this, and then like next year you're like, oh, actually I don't like that. Because you notice when you have your Minecraft world, once stuff is there, like it's there, even if you have like, I think nether reactor blocks, if you happen to have one in the world, I don't think they disappear. Actually, that one might be a bad example, but there were some other
there are
like
some
legacy
blocks. Yeah,
blocks
there's some
that
really
where they
hacky
just stick
stuff
around
that
for forever.
maybe you have an
So
efficiency helmet or but yeah, like
yeah,
also there's all
yeah,
sorts of update blocks. Yeah.
yeah. So that there's this expectation that like I have a world that I play on regularly that's over 10 years old. Like you also have a world you've been playing on for years and years and years. And you get some weird idiosyncrasies when you're upgrading, but generally speaking, your world is still there. So to answer your question about multiplayer, obviously there's like Geyser MC in the community, so you can play as a Bedrock player on a Java server. And like we mentioned, the games are mostly the same, so it mostly works. If you start digging into some of the edge cases and stuff, though, there's problems. And the fundamental problem is the games are not the same. And even though we're largely updating them at the same cadence, there's some differences and
Yeah.
discrepancies. So you'd run into problems about like, okay, so I just placed some redstone down. Is this redstone going to work like Java?
Yeah, you fundamentally
Like
have to
Bedrock?
say it's either a Java world that Bedrock players can join, or it's a Bedrock world Java players can
Mhm.
join. I believe most of the servers go the Java main route first, and then it results in all sorts of things that you expect to be able to do that don't work on Bedrock, or like
Mhm.
the offhand. Yeah, you run into all those issues. But I still, I wonder if that is the big reason. Just like if you can't do it 100%, it's not worth doing 96%, or if it is like something more fundamental.
It's once it's an official Mojang thing. If I go, hey, cross play realms, so Java players, players play together in your realms. Like, there's a lot of expectation there as an official feature. Like,
Yeah.
it should be always available, 24/7.
Yep.
It shouldn't have any obvious bugs, and it should be a solid foundation for us to build off of for years to come. And if we just did our own version of Geyser, like it wouldn't be there yet. It
Hmm.
would it would take a lot of work.
Do you think sometimes that limits you as, like obviously you are one person working for
Mhm.
a what can be considered a very big company, maybe one of the biggest in the world. And so do you sometimes feel like, man, there's this cool thing we could do, but because even though Minecraft is arguably still an indie game, I mean, maybe when it got bought, it stopped being that, but it is still a smallish studio. You could do some
Mhm.
cool things that you can't do as much because you're a team of, like you're not a team of three, you're a team of, 30, you're a team of 100. Do you think sometimes there are like limits to that? And if so, do you think there are benefits that counteract that?
There's trade-offs. So talking about the size of the studio, and then, or are you part of, Microsoft, or are you in completely independent studio?
Actually, wait,
Like
that's a really good question first. Do you say you work for Mojang or do you say you work for Microsoft?
oh,
I mean, that's the correct answer, right? That's the only
mm.
valid one. But there is some controversy about whether you refer to people who work, like, is it a Mojang developer or a Microsoft developer? Like, again, technically both, but there's a lot of charge behind the words.
Yeah, there's definitely around when how I want to phrase this. Obviously, there's been some cultural shifts over time with Minecraft, from where it very first started, where it was an indie game being developed by one person, to small group of people, to founders getting tired of running the game, and it's like, hey, anyone want to buy this from me? And Microsoft's like, hello. Uh, and then Microsoft, now it's part of Xbox Game Studio. So you can imagine, as the team grows in orders of magnitude and size, and then in context of where the business is, there's some cultural shifts that happen. But where we're at right now, Mojang Studios is everyone, both in, we have the two big offices in Stockholm and Redmond, but there's also a lot of people scattered all over the place, all around the world,
Uh-huh.
literally. And everyone is Mojang Studios.
Yes.
So we're all part of the same family. But then, I'm also a Microsoft employee. I have a Microsoft employee badge. I go work in a Microsoft building, get a Microsoft email account. So I'm very much a Microsoft developer as well.
So that's how you think there are some people who are still Mojang and still technically Microsoft, but way less integrated in, especially you maybe might say in like, if you're around the world remote, but maybe even like in the Sweden office because it's not as built into a Microsoft building, or do you think that even that distinction is? Do you think that's a slightly fairer way to paint it, that everyone's Microsoft, but some people feel more Mojang than feel Microsoft? It's like how you might
Um,
be from, say, Washington State, but also an American. They're both correct, but
mm.
some people feel one more than the other. I'm from England, but also the UK, but also Europe as a continent. Um, do you think it's a bit like that, or do you think it's like, well, everyone has their own answer, and how would you answer that?
I think you can ask different. I've heard other people in Stockholm say this publicly, including people you've had before in your videos. They're like, I view us all as one family.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way. Like we're all one big family. We all want Minecraft to be the best game it can be. If you've, I don't, have you visited Stockholm before?
No,
I know
surprisingly.
you,
Oh, I mean, not for
I know
the
you
not for
visited
Microsoft
Seattle. Oh, yeah,
reasons. Um,
Stockholm's a beautiful city. You
it
should
is,
go.
yeah.
I know you're an avid traveler.
I
It's
have,
a
yeah.
great
I
city
spent
to
a
go.
week there way back. It was the week, I remember it was the week Pokemon Go came out, and my internet didn't work in Sweden, and I was just like desperately like, come on, I just want to play this game. But yeah, I've been to Sweden. It's beautiful. I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah, Seattle, Stockholm, they're both very beautiful cities in their own way, but that there is, each has a unique culture,
Yeah,
the American metropolis, the very European
it's more people
capital.
pooping on the street in one, and there's a few more people. But like but in exchange you get much better fast food for so it's ups and downs.
So, I mean, in a business context, there's slightly different cultures. I'm the loud American, let's do some features, and then, in Stockholm, it's a slightly different vibe. But we're all, our hearts are all on, let's make Minecraft as awesome as it can be. So we're all part of the same family.
Do you feel like sometimes you come across as the loud American? I feel like you've got the most respectful American voice. Like I feel like it is a cultural thing to adjust to, like, oh yeah, there's a loudness
Yeah.
thing. But you're very, very balanced in what you say. You can emphasize stuff without being like, no, I will steamroll you. You're wrong about this. So if I can give you a
Well,
compliment
thank
in the
you.
middle of this. Okay, so now that I've complimented you, tell me one secret about Minecraft that you can't publicly tell anyone. It's just between us friends. I swear I'm not recording. Uh, just uh, just one big
So
secret.
there's a secret that I revealed we had a recent Discord Q&A
Oh,
on the official Minecraft Discord channel, and I revealed exclusive new information, and it didn't seem to get noticed. So I'll
oh,
reveal it again here. That
yes.
within the next year, we're planning on giving you a way to try out on your own bigger render distance for realms and see if that's something you want for your particular realm.
Oh, that is huge, actually. So you're saying try out in the sense that there is a downside that comes of it, or is it because obviously it's server side processing, or it partially is? Is that like same resources, but you can put more? It's like if you have a console, you could run it 100 chunks, but you get a lower frame rate. If in some cases, right? You can't. Is it the same thing where you've got the same power but more frame rate or more render distance options?
Yeah, this is probably going to be the same sort of server SKU, so same amount of RAM
Yeah.
and CPU for the server, but you can try adjusting. Basically, we've been making a lot of changes on Bedrock to make things more efficient. Like there's a lot of things about, Minecraft has a almost, I mean, it's not really infinite, but virtually infinite world, very, very
Yeah.
large. And there's all these 16 by 16 chunks. And the chunk is deterministically generated by the seed, meaning if I tell you the seed, and I tell you the version of the game we're playing,
Uh huh.
and I ask you about, oh, chunk, 100, 64, 100, what does it look like? Like you could tell me. It's deterministic. So if I'm like flying on my elytra, blazing fast through the landscape, and chunks are like flying at me and getting generated, like a lot of those chunks, if I never touch them, like we already know what they look like,
Uh
even
huh.
without communicating between the client and the server, because we both know the seed, we know the version of the game we're playing. So I don't necessarily have to save all those chunks as they're flying by. And maybe the server doesn't even have to give them to me. Maybe on the client, I just know. Like, oh, well, that chunk's going to be a lake. It's going to have a cherry blossom tree right next to it because, we're in seed 123 and we're on Bedrock.
Yeah, the way Console Edition did this, because that was built from ground up to be like hop in, hop out multiplayer, was you only save the changes to chunks, and so by default you don't ever have to communicate that. It made it very efficient. There is the funny, I'm sure you've got a fix for this, but I think it's just a funny story that there's the downside of when you have people like there's this thing called Operation Bedrock. There's a lot of people who mine their entire worlds, and so their changes to the chunk is every single block. They've effectively increased the storage size back up to the terrible things from before. No one actually does that in a legit survival world, so it's not a thing I'm concerned about. But it's a funny like story that happens on the other end of that. That technically speaking, if you mined out your entire world, you would lose the performance benefits of the clever thing you're talking about. And I'm guessing also
Oh,
make it much laggier multiplayer.
yeah, you don't even have to go that far. Like even my main realm that I've planned, the one that you toured before on YouTube
I have.
channel, like in the core area of that world, every chunk has been changed. No chunk is left untouched. Everything has been tweaked and modded and shaped and sculpted and mined and dug and
Yeah, yeah,
it's
you
been played
those
on
that
for
none of
years
that
and
is
years.
natural. You're right. That's all.
Yeah. So there's different stuff. There's different caching techniques where you're like, okay, I've gotten this chunk from the server. I know it has, the welcome center and horse barn in it. So I don't need to ask the server about that again because I can hold on to that in my client memory. But then it's even more interesting because we have so many different platforms we support. If you have a PlayStation 5, and then you have a really old Android phone, and they're playing on the same server, like the PlayStation has a lot more memory. The Android server is maybe like, but please, Realm server, could you do some of this processing for me? I'm at my limit. It was the PlayStation's like,
Because
give
that
me
is
more.
one of the
I can
benefits
process
of
more.
Realms on lower power devices is you get that little
Mhm.
handoff like, okay, Realms, you can do some of this for me, so I can just focus on. You're right that there is a trade-off that like the PS5 is begging, like, I'll do as much of this as I can. Uh, that is a fun way of thinking about that. So the improvement is that you're now, or eventually, you'll be able to trial out picking your own render distance.
It, yeah, we would. I don't know if it'll be pick render distance, but you'll have the option of saying like, hey, for my realm, yes, let's try some bigger render distance. Let's see how it works.
Yeah, from some options, of course, as Minecraft always does. There's that fun bar. I've always this is one of those. Maybe you dive into the code. It varies based on your device, based on things I can never quite work out. I'm always like, so like a phone might give you 32 chunks, but a Xbox Series X might give you 28, and it's like I'm sure there's no way my phone has more power than an Xbox controller, but it seems to imply that there's fun things like that there's some behind the scenes calculation that it's making to give you your
Yeah, there's a
range.
lot of. I think even before I started working at Mojang,
Hmm.
but I was a professional software developer at Microsoft. I wasn't working on Minecraft at all. When they announced
Wait, did you
Bedrock
have to
was
make?
doing
Sorry, just did you have to make like real software then? Like like actual things? Like did you have like a big upgrade when you moved into like games, or was it on other games and stuff too?
No, it wasn't. So, like many people, it's actually pretty common in the software industry. People grow up as kids, like, "Oh, I love video games. I want to make games." And it ends up the industry, like there's lots of places where you can read lots of discussion online about the health of the games industry, but it ends up kind of analogous to like Hollywood, where there's lots and lots of people who grow up like, "Oh, I want to be a movie star, or I want to make movies, I want to be a director, or I want to do special effects for movies." So it's like a dream job where there's a huge supply of people who really want to do this thing.
Yeah,
And you end up with some of these jobs are kind of rough because there's
yeah,
just this glut of people who want to do them. So the actual job might be kind of terrible, and maybe you're better off doing something else.
yeah. The
But
way I've
it's
heard it
kind of,
described is you'll have like maybe triple the salary for a regular job and way less ridiculous expectations. Because for a dream job, you can crunch those people till they die. They are. There's for every one man that falls, five can take his place. But whereas like it's a bit different in other industries. So that's where you started. You started in like just real software and then kind of moved back.
well,
Not to imply
I,
that
I
Minecraft
start
isn't real software. It's the
like
best
I
software.
started in the games industry. So I was working at a game company. Like I was working on their level editor and stuff when I first started. But it was, literally like you get paid half of what you would get paid to do something else, and the hour expectations are, oh, you should work twice as many hours. And eventually, I was like, this isn't that great. This isn't everything I hoped and dreamed it would be as a bright-eyed child. So for a while, I was working on business software. I worked on like Windows Mobile and stuff like that, Windows Media Player. But I spent quite a while working on Microsoft Dynamics CRM, which is software to help salespeople sell more stuff.
Oh,
And like they have
Salesforce is the equivalent, I'm guessing.
that's the arch nemesis of
Oh, Schnemet. They're your Zoom to your Microsoft Teams, or
yes,
the
yes,
Roblox to
yes.
your
The
Minecraft,
oh yes.
or appropriate
But I mean,
response. Oof.
you go to like they would have conventions and stuff. You think of Minecon. There's like an equivalent like sales convention, and you go there and like all the people there are like, I have this Canadian flooring business, and we sell heated flooring to people up in Saskatchewan, and your software is like the bee's knees, and they're just so excited about what you're building. Yeah, it's like, well, I'm glad I made your day good because that's probably the most interesting part of what I'm working on. Like, yeah, Minecraft is completely different. It's like something I'm deeply passionate about. It's been very meaningful in my life. Some of the experiences I've had with my friends playing on the servers over the years.
Do you feel that way a bit
So yeah,
about when
yeah,
you go to like any Minecraft event where you're like, yeah, in normal life you're like kind of low key, but then someone's like, yes, your Minecraft realm is the reason I could connect with my son again, and like the it's like a localized fame, right? Is what you get at a Minecraft sort of area.
yeah. I'm very curious. So like we haven't talked about Minecraft Festival in a while. There's kind of this expectation I've seen in the community that's a thing that could happen again. I assume if there was a Minecraft festival, you'd be interested in going.
Oh yeah, 100%. Is that where we'd meet for realsies? You're saying
I,
right now you're inviting me on a date to Mine Festival? I'm there. I'm in.
well, I mean, if there is a Minecraft festival in the future, I will definitely be going. And it sounds like you'll be going, so we'd definitely say hi.
Yeah, it'd be great. I'm excited. I genuinely like. Yeah, it's 2016. I think was the last in-person event. Because just as they got, it's such a. This happened in so many industries, right? Like just as they finally announced going back into in person, just about to
Yeah.
do something, like oof, big global event happened. Who knows what it was? But 3 years of our memory have just kind of vanished for a little bit
It's
there.
gone.
Who knows what
Exactly.
happened? All I know is I aged a little bit somewhere in there. But yeah, I to bring that way back, I interrupted your actual thought about Minecraft realms
Yeah,
and yeah, your Minecraft
no,
developing.
yeah. I tend to be long-winded in my answers, but eventually I'm getting there.
It's good
So
for a podcast, though.
I've been
Good for a podcast.
I've been to Mine Fair before, which was like a third-party event, and I had like my Minecraft team member shirt on. Like no one cared. Like the people who care are like the YouTubers that were there. Like, oh, there's
I,
OMG chat there, OMG, whatever.
I mean, yeah,
But
there's a
anyways,
yeah. Don't, too many tangents there. Let's stay on track. I've got a whole set of thoughts about those conventions, but we'll stay on track. We'll
oh,
get it. We'll get it.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on them too. But yeah, for me, I have yet to be in a context where I step out and like, oh, it's the Realms guy. Whoa. I have like this T-shirt that says Mojang on it. Is like it's one of the old school ones. It doesn't so it has the
Oh,
old logo and everything. And if you wear that around in public, you get some degree of attention. Like some of it's kind of fun. Like you go to the store and the checkout person's like, "Hey, you work in Minecraft?" Yeah, actually, it's like, "Oh, okay, here's your eggs."
Can you add grizzly bears to the game? I think I've got this really good idea. It's just between me and you. You don't have to tell anyone, man. It's all yours. Something like that.
Yeah, yeah, the children in my life definitely that's the number one thing. They're always like, "Hey, David, we should have a sussy sunflower that appears and like it's a sunflower." But this is literally like the suggestion I hear every time I see this kid.
Suspicious
But,
sunflower. That's a good idea.
well,
You could brush it and get suspicious seeds, and then
the suspicious sand was actually it had a different name originally. I don't know if it's public, but at some point there was a discussion about what should this block be named, the suspicious sand, suspicious gravel. And this kid was like in my ear all the time about the sussy sunflower. So I was like, and someone had suggested suspicious sand. It wasn't my idea, but I was like, yes, yes, that one, suspicious, suspicious. Well, because it's also a good Minecraft word, like suspicious stew has been a thing for a while. Suspicious sand, suspicious gravel. It sounds like to me it sounded perfect, but it was also like a wink and a nod to this kid in my life. It was like, please, please, David, please. So I told him afterwards, like, well, you don't get sussy sunflower, but sussy sand in the game now.
that's fun. I like that. I like that a lot. But the so you what you worked on Minecraft after this other thing, and you kind of done a fair few roles before getting to Realms here, and I think that whole thing was leading up into like, okay, so you don't pick your render distance. Will we be able to pick a simulation distance too, though? That's my question. Because I remember at one point you trialed increasing that, but it wasn't an option, and a lot of people went, this breaks everything,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah,
fun.
there's three big feature requests that people always have for Realms. And like any place you're listening to the community, whether it's on Twitter, Discord, Reddit, wherever, these three suggestions will always come up. It's farther render distance, farther simulation distance, and higher player count. And all three of those have in common, all of them have a much bigger server load for the server that's running, some more than others. So the render distance, obviously, the farther you can see, the more chunks the server has to be telling the clients about. And then it's also, if you're on a multiplayer server, you got 11 people on a realm maybe playing at once. Maybe all those people are scattered about the world, and maybe they're in different dimensions. Maybe they're scattered across all three dimensions. Like
Hmm.
there's a high peak memory load there. So the render distance, like we talked about earlier, there's some optimizations you can do to be a little bit more clever about how you're sending information around. So render distance would probably be like we give a broad setting to everyone. Ideally, there's a slider so you can lower it down. We do have on the client side, you can lower your slider. So if you're like right now, render distance for realms is
10, 11, 12.
12
Yeah.
chunks. Yeah, so if you're like, oh, I don't like this on my phone because I feel like my phone isn't handling it well, like you can lower it down to like 8 chunks locally, and that's what you'll see
Yeah,
on
yeah. It
everyone
will
else's
pick the
versions.
lowest of the two, not the highest of the
Yeah,
two.
yeah. Simulation distance, though, is a little more interesting because it affects how farms work and other things work. It affects what the experience is like when you're exploring in a dark forest in Minecraft. It feels really different on a really tight simulation distance versus a very big one. So that one, I would like to add it at some point just because that's what players want. So you always want to. Yeah, sometimes players want something like the example I give is like lava boats. They're like, oh, I want a boat for lava. What if you make it out of iron? And then like there's another update, like, oh, fireproof wood. Well, of course you should put some, warped planks in a U shape with a warped wood shovel, and then you should have a fireproof boat. And like the gameplay team, they're like, yeah, we could do that. That would be the obvious thing to do. But wouldn't it be more fun if we had a really ugly, cute, square-haired mob, and then it has little cute babies, and it shivers when it's out of the lava, and so you have it. The Strider is a lava boat, but it's a way more Minecrafty lava boat than if you
It's
could
a
just take
lava
something like
horse, not a lava boat. You
yeah,
know, I used to agree with the Minecraft people being like, yeah, it's a lava boat. But as I go more and more, it's a lava pig even because you need the carrot on a
that's
stick.
probably the best
It's
analogy. Yeah,
so I feel like lava boats still don't have a gameplay spot. It's just there is a lava equivalent that is maybe better and makes more thematic sense than the boat.
yeah.
I still get confused though when like it feels so odd to me when you can't craft a warped boat for the overworld. I'm like, I have this wood. I'll craft it in, and that's one of those like also things where like if you made it, it would make sense for it to be lava resistant, but it can't be lava resistant. So should you
Yeah.
not have it at all? Like I can see the deep thoughts you have to have as a team behind stuff like that.
Yeah. You would probably be surprised, even you as an advanced Minecraft player, how much thought goes into stuff like this. It's exactly those sorts of thoughts about, well, isn't it weird that you have this wood and you can't make a boat out of it? You can make everything else out of it. Like, but yeah, but if you could make a boat, then people would be like, why isn't it fireproof? Because if I put in the world, it's fireproof. But if I make an object out of it and it's not fireproof, like, why, Mosaic? Why?
Yeah, the fact that
Some of these things are tricky.
warped wood makes sticks and the sticks aren't fireproof is weird, but
Mm,
also what are you gonna do, right?
yeah.
You're gonna make warped
It's a
sticks that
balancing
now,
act.
and then you've added an inventory
Something has
issue. Yeah, that is every new feature is a huge balancing act.
mm,
I think that's the. I think this is like arguably just the scientific method, but I think more people when approaching stuff like this should think about it as like, okay, what is the alternative? Not just like what could go wrong if you didn't do this? Why is this being done? More people see something and just think, oh, this was clearly done just to spite me in this one way. But there's always a lot of thought behind bad decisions, even, and that's one of the. A lot of bad decisions are good decisions, but a lot of bad decisions are just high thought, way over analyzed, way over built, but still well thought out, just for the
yeah.
wrong
Not to
reasons.
say so that's a good point. It's not to say that sometimes changes don't happen and there was effects that we hadn't considered. Like one that comes to mind is Nether portal farm, gold farms in Bedrock. Like there's a certain type of farm where you take a Nether portal and you extinguish and ignite
Over
it
and over, yeah, yeah.
as fast as you can, and it just zombified piglins just rain out of it, and then you kill them and you get all this gold.
Uh-huh.
And we broke that a couple. It was like I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago, some time ago, but there was a different bug fix. There was some other bug, like, like nether portals are just a recipe for bugs. Like for a while, if you ate while you were going through a nether portal, it's like a bad idea. It could crash your game.
Oh, they
So we
fixed that now,
fixed
have
some
they? I
problem.
still, I still try to avoid eating going through nerve portals. I'm like, what
I do
if
too.
this one kept coming back? So maybe it's come back now.
Yeah, yeah. Is it still? I don't know. It's never eat while you're traveling dimensions. You know this. Like,
That's almost a bit of lore, but yeah, that's funny how that is.
yeah, the food goes to a different dimensional shift in your body, and then you just
It gets 8 times bigger, and now you've eaten 8 times as many steaks, and now you're over full.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
That
it's
that's the lore. Yes, that's the steak grows right after eight.
and so then you have to move, so you're not in the steak anymore. It makes perfect sense,
I
But
love that. But anyway, so to say, like we've made this fix to the Nether portal, but it had the side effect of breaking these gold farms for Bedrock, and people were immediately very vocal about like my gold farms. You hate farms. You hate the players. Yeah, and you're like, oh, well, we actually didn't intend to break this. It's a side effect. And that one we reverted like right away. Like it was like a hot fix afterwards. Like, whoop, here's your gold farms. Here they are.
I feel this one because so many farms are built around bugs that probably should be fixed. But then also, if you built something in your world, it's kind of unfair to be like, those hours you wasted, that was for a bug, and not the normal type of bug that we don't fix, the type of bug we do want to fix. But then once you say there are types of bugs you won't fix because it's been so long, now you're saying that bugs are kind of up to interpretation, and you get a really fun debate about, should these bugs even exist? Is this even... I can just emphasize that so much, like the costs and the trade-offs of everything that starts to happen there. But I have to quickly take a break and advertise our great sponsor of the week. This episode of Deep in the Mine is brought to you by Bird Dogs and Factor 75. So Bird Dogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Bird Dogs shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but fit way better. They fit way better than regular shorts and are made of a stiff, restricting cotton. Bird Dogs fixed this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. Bird Dogs uses an anti-stink sweat wetting fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Go to birddogs.com/pool and enter promo code POOL for a free Yeti style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/pool for a free Yeti style tumbler. You won't want to take your bird dogs off, we promise you. That is the ad read for that. I feel like one of the fun things about podcasts is the way that these ads work, but one of my favorite companies is one that we finally got to sponsor this week, which is Factor. You might not know about this, but Factor is actually Factor meals are a big one. But yeah, if now that we're in the thick of summer, you might be looking for a wholesome, convenient meal to support sunny, active days. Factor is America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, and I have personally used them. You might actually know this. I've mentioned this before, but Factor is incredibly handy for either if you're too busy, you don't want to necessarily put all the time into cooking, but also you want to get high quality and fresh nutritional meals. That is what Factor actually delivers. I found them to be genuinely delicious, and they allow you to feel the best and make the most of your summer adventure. And they have all sorts of options on there. You can have a calorie conscious option where you can, it's called Smart, where you can make sure they're dietitian approved calorie smart meals where they have less than 550 calories per serving. You can have protein plus meals. You can do vegan, veggie. They have every single dietary option you can imagine covered, and it's really, really handy for just getting really good meals that can be made in just a few minutes. I find that to be a big win. Again, I like good food. I'm a big food person. Don't know if that's come up. And so having good food, having it be easy to access is something I find to be incredibly important. Also, with Factor, you can rest assured you're making a sustainable choice. They offset 100% of their delivery emissions, and they use renewable electricity for sites, production, and offices. And this July, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered to your door, ready in just 2 minutes. Head to factormeals.com/deepinthemine50. Hey, I get my own code. That's right, go to factormeals.com/deepinthemine50 and use code deepinthemine50 to get 50% off. That's code deepinthemine50 at factormeals.com/deepinthemine to get 50% off. And again, I enjoyed mine personally. I would definitely recommend at least giving it a look. It is one of my favorite. I love good food, and I'm not joking when I say these were actually good. I would just not mention quality if I didn't think they were great, but I really, really, really like them. There's a lot of easy to make stuff that just tastes like mush. These meals were all very, very good, and I got to eat them all during one of my busiest weeks while I was in the United States. They don't sadly ship to the UK. It is a US based company, but yeah, if you live in America, give it a shot. It's 50% off, I hear. Where can you get that code? Factormeals.com/deepinthemine50 is what I heard. Anyway, so let's get back to talking to David now. Sorry, okay, let's back to Minecraft.
This is good. You found a product that is sponsoring you that you're actually passionate about. That's always the sweet spot. Like, I watch a lot of YouTube, and it's always interesting to see like certain genres of YouTube channels be like, brought to you by Story Blocks. I actually use Story Blocks to make, because I didn't fly to Libya to film in the desert. So it's interesting when they have that, and then the opposite is like obviously it's something this person does not care about, but they just want the money. So
I admire that second one more, weirdly enough. Like, I would have assumed until a lot of people say this, but I assume people prefer it when you're like, yes, this is a money deal. Welcome to the sponsorship reading for Raid Shadow Legends. They are the number one growing, like, rather than being like, I personally play Raid and it's really, really good. You know, like, I feel like that's the balance is. But I think most people would just prefer you be passionate about things. But then there's like a fake incentive to be passionate about products that you're not. Like, you know what I
yeah.
really love? I love this VPN service. Nothing gets me up in the morning like having my data protected when I browse online. I know it doesn't work, but it feels like it does, and that's what really matters. That to me is the weird incentive in that. Like, I prefer people are dispassionate about the things they're advertising. Like, this is an ad. This is not. You are paid to say
This is a
this.
purely monetary transaction and does not involve my feelings or passions at all.
Like, I mean, there are some things like, you know, like for instance, you can advertise, say, becoming a member or subscribing or buying a merch piece. I am, of course, passionate about you buying my merch, but on some level, I am passionate about it because, oh yes, I will get some financial gain from that, and I think that everything should have that little element of disclosure of like, yes, I can never be as passionate about this in a fair way as I can be about Minecraft bugs or, you know, about, you know, Big Salmon. I can never be the same fair level of passion because Big Salmon doesn't pay me yet. Working on the sponsor deal, getting a code, use code TOYCAT, get 10% Bigger Salmon. But in the meantime,
I never thought Big Salmon has kind of this intonation at some sort of like broad like lobbying group. You're in the pocket of Big Salmon.
I will be in the pocket of Big Salmon soon. Big Salmon is motivating all my decisions. Big Salmon wants Bedrock to be different because it's in his financial interests. Soon, if he's on both platforms, he'll just become Salmon. He doesn't want that. He wants to stay Big Salmon.
Yeah. And it's just salmon. It's not big anymore.
What is being Big Salmon if there's not small salmon to be compared against? It's nothing, I tell you. You're right. It does have a little bit of a like big tobacco. It has like a big farmer, big salmon. It has the same vibe. I see that. So I want to know a little bit more about piracy. I know it's not your specific focus, and you can only really talk about the general. I mean, okay, give me so give me your thoughts on will 100% parity actually be reached, or is that more of a goal in the same way that I have a goal of living forever, or I have a goal of becoming a trillionaire? Like, I can have these goals, but I also know the odds of them getting there are so close to zero that it's more of a idealistic thing. It just encourages me to eat less rice or eat more rice, and you know, go out to buy lobster rolls slightly less. You know, is it the same thing, or do you feel like you could see a path to 100% parity?
Oh, well, you mean you're not going to be like an immortal brain in a jar?
With my $1 trillion that I'll have from all the interest, or maybe just inflation, one of the
there you
two.
go. Yeah, it could just compound interest forever. No, parody. It's interesting because like you said, there's several levels to it. There's stuff like some things like, oh, what's the recipe for a boat? Like, should it have a shovel? Should it not have a shovel? Like, that's mostly just having the designers think about, well, what makes the most sense? What's the most fun? Maybe the shovel makes sense thematically because you're paddling with the shovel, but practically speaking, having a multi-stage crafting recipe is kind of annoying and obtuse for
It's
players.
3 steps. It's so many. I get bored midway through crafting a boat, and then I give up and I make myself a chest instead. You know,
Yeah, just make barrels. That's all I do. Why can't I float in a barrel? Barrels win. So that's like the easy stage of parody, where it's just we need to make a conscious choice about what the right thing is to do here. Then there's a little bit harder, where it's things like offhand or Bedrock is my personal parody thing. I want the most. I want to eat food in my offhand. I want to hold torches in my offhand. These are things I do all the time when I'm playing Java Edition, and when I'm playing Bedrock Edition, I can't do them. And this is actually more complicated than you would expect. So roughly once a year, we'll do something called a game jam at the studio where we get a chance to work on whatever we want. And sometimes it's completely frivolous things like, oh, what if, I don't know, I almost don't want to give examples. Okay, an example is not coming to the game. friendly creepers. Someone had a fun prototype. What if creepers could be pets? And like they fully thought this out. It was very whimsical and fun. It's not coming to Minecraft. It's not an announcement. But I did one of the things I did was offhand for Bedrock because I really wanted mending items and tempting items in the offhand. Because the axolotl, fighting with an axolotl is much better if your offhand can hold a bucket of fish, which
Hmm.
it can't in Bedrock
Of
currently.
course.
So fighting a bunch of underwater mobs with axolotls is dramatically worse in Bedrock than it is in Java right now,
Yeah.
strictly because of the offhand. So I did an implementation of it, and that wasn't even full offhand. It wasn't even full parity with Java, and even then, it was obvious like there was a lot of work there. If you hold the bow in your offhand, it was looking really weird. It mounted your character's bone in your hand wrong. Like the trident was really strange, and like there were other problems too. And then there's the big one for mobile interface. Like you need a dedicated way to use offhand. So
The
that's
very
kind of
big
the
one,
middle
yeah.
tier of parity. Like that's where we want to go. We're going to get there, but it's more complicated than it might seem at first blush.
I
The high level.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry, just to take I feel like the bigger offhand problem is the game balance that comes with it a
mm,
little bit, right? Like, is they gave the offhand slot a whole second thing, but in exchange they slowed down the combat. And I feel like that's always the reluctance that was on there on adding it again. I'd be interested to learn if you feel like that's not the case because you would know better than me. But that's what I always
I
felt like was part of the reason.
I think that is part of the reason as well. Uh, I don't. I feel like obviously the combat's different between Java and Bedrock. That's a whole another subject.
That's a very hard one, yeah. A lot of Java players might even be happy of the Bedrock combat because they'd just be going back for them.
Well,
Um,
yeah, there's people who still play PvP in the pre-combat update because that's what they prefer. And then, you could argue, oh, there's more skill for having this rhythm of clicking right when the cooldown hits. And you watch really high-level Minecraft players have PvP, and like, oh, this is really interesting. This is really fun the way they're using the fishing rod to manipulate people, and then axes and crits and
there's so much going on,
um,
yeah. That's,
Okay, but yeah, that's a good example of why there's more to Bedrock offhand parity than you might think. And maybe it's like, oh, we need to rethink combat, or we need to rethink other aspects of the game. Like maybe there's broader ramifications. It's not as simple as like just give it to us already. Like there's uh, I think Foxy No Tail has an add-on for Bedrock where you can put stuff in your offhand. And it's like, well, modders can do this in a day. Why can't Mojang do it? And it's been so long. Lazy, that
but
whole narrative. It's,
it
it's complicated. If you're doing it properly for everyone for years to come, it's not as complicated as you might think.
Yeah, I
Uh,
feel like you could add the bare minimum, just like have anything work there and see how it goes. But
mm,
then I think as a user, the reason that gets questionable is because like, couldn't you try it in a beta? Can you just let us see, and then we could have But then the problem is once something goes into a beta, there's a lot of resistance about removing it, and so you got to be careful
yeah.
about what you pick as the first versions in that way.
When you can look at things like the bundle and how that's viewed, like the bundle is effectively still in beta for Java. You can turn it on for your world, but it's not there for everyone. So there's a lot of like, well, why? Why? So in general, we want players to be happy and not be frustrated. So there's certain ways you can do things where people are like, "Oh, I'm getting good stuff. Yay! I feel like I'm being heard by the company, and Minecraft is reflecting the thing I would like it to be." Whereas there's another way to do things like, "Wait, you had all these awesome things, then you took them away, and I am mad, because Mojang just takes away everything good."
Do you think that they like? I imagine there's some real answer, but do features have to get to some internal hurdle before they can even get in a beta and snapshot as a result of that? Because like the example you just gave, if you try to add an axolotl in a bucket to the offhand, and then like, oh, it
Mm,
doesn't work, it works with all these things poorly. There are very few Minecraft beta features that end up being removed, which is why I feel like that might be
yeah.
true.
No, you're absolutely right. There's a pretty high quality bar for stuff. So that in code you have what's called the main branch.
Yep.
And in Bedrock in particular, we're shipping generally every month. And that's shipping a new update to the game every month on all the different platforms this Bedrock's on the same day on every platform. Like to get back to an earlier question, we were talking about like something I was impressed with before I started working at Mojang, but I was a Microsoft employee. So as a professional software developer, I know how, the sausage is made, all that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
When they announced crossplay for, it was even before it was Bedrock Edition.
Yeah.
It was like Windows 10 edition and everything, but they had that big announcement for crossplay across all platforms. I was like, oh, oh,
Minecraft might have
that's
been the first
impressive.
big game to do that. I know a lot of games got on it just afterwards, but yeah,
Yeah.
like phone, I was iPhones and Android already was crazy to me, but then also PC, like, and then also they started getting the consoles in on it. It was mind blowing that, and now it's just taken for granted. Like, yeah, of course my Switch friend can join me. Why wouldn't he be able to? He'd
Yeah,
be
well, yeah,
playing
of course. Why
Minecraft.
wouldn't he? Like I'll work on the Switch code and I'll work on the iPhone code. They're really different. Like for Realms, like you have to be able to buy the game anywhere, and there's a different platform store everywhere, and like you go
Different
to the
hooks
store, you give
in
the
and out.
money,
Yeah.
you get a receipt. You have to hand the receipt to us to show like, hey, yeah, I bought a Realm. Look right here, at Apple Store. Like I have to touch all of it, and it boggles my mind how good the parity is between Bedrock platforms. Um, but yeah, anyways, so to answer your question about the bar for things being in beta and preview, it has to be in the main branch to be in beta and preview, and we have a high quality bar because we need to ship a version out of that branch every month. So if I start being, cowboy code, where I'm like, all right, everyone, buckets of tropical fish in your offhand, here we go, and it's like half the items don't work in your offhand, it's like, oh, we can't ship that, but we've got it in the code here. It's like you have to do extra work to put stuff in, and the strategy that we're using right now is you have a toggle in game, so it'll be like
Hmm.
experimental toggles, like, oh, next update, yes, give me all that, or
Yeah, that's the
like,
clever way
oh,
to have like, 1.20.30 can be worked on, while also 1.21 will eventually be able to be worked on within the same
mm,
kind of stuff. That I do think that is like a clever. It's unintuitive at first, but it makes sense why you have to do it with so many people working there. But to just kind of, I know it's a tricky question to kind of just push the tiniest bit further. Um, do you like there, even if it's hard to work out, even getting an offhand to work the same between all the devices, if it's hard to work out how combat should work and regeneration, how would you ever solve the redstone issue? How can you ever solve the Nether roof issue where Java players have built up there, but Bedrock players can't, and you have to add a lot of more performance for them to do it? Or the Farlands, even like people,
mm.
how would you ever come close to solving those?
So that's why I was gradually building towards that. So we have the really easy ones, where it's just a matter of making a
Yeah.
conscious choice. The medium ones, where we can do this, but there's a lot of steps involved. And then kind of the max difficulty is what you talked about early. Like, what about full crossplay? What if I have one realm that Bedrock and Java players can play on? Like to get there and have it be fully officially Mojang supported and all of that, you would need complete gameplay parity between both
Yeah.
versions. You would need, Redstone works the same. We have, see, I think it is possible. Like, I think you could have quasi connectivity parity. You would have to do, this is my personal opinion. This is not a
Yeah.
promise that
Yeah.
things become, but the way I would do it, if this was what I was working on, I would have like a quasi piston where you can choose, like, do I want a regular piston or a quasi piston? And then I can choose whether I want to make a Jeb door or whether I want,
And you'd have to convert
redstone that
every
does
single piston on one platform to, or Java, let's just say, to the Quasi piston.
Yeah, so if I was designing this, I'm
Yeah,
not.
yeah, obviously, yeah, yeah. This is
Yeah,
a
it's
hypothetical. You're not currently
it,
working on redstone differences, but that is a solution that
correct.
you see that could work if someone implemented it.
Yeah, it's something as a Minecraft fan, it's something I think about. And then as a Realms tech lead and dev lead, I think about like, well, it would be nice if you could just buy one realm and anyone could play there. Especially when people see like, oh, I can go on, these custom community created server software, and I have Bedrock and Java players playing together, and we're going to a virtual concert in Minecraft, and why can't I do that on a realm? Like, well, let's think about it. How would it work? But yeah, I think you would have to upgrade the Java world, and all those pistons would turn to quasi pistons, and you upgrade the Bedrock world, and all those pistons would be normal pistons. But then you could build a different type of piston in your different worlds, and like, there's possible ways you could solve
You'd
it.
have to do that for
But
every piece of redstone, I think, right? Because every single
yeah.
piece might be powered in a certain way. Um,
It,
yeah, it's a lot
it's
of.
not quite that bad, but yeah, there is. It's hard because people, like you said, people build computers inside the game, and I have a functional laptop, and it's running in Minecraft, and then it's running the game of Minecraft or whatever, and that's incredibly impressive. And it's always kind of bad when you break stuff like that people work so hard
Never the
on. So
goal.
it's a
Yeah.
tough challenges,
So
tough
you
choices.
do think that there is a pathway there. It's not like if I would be quite defeatist, I'd be like, okay, this is a fun goal, like becoming a trillionaire. But you think it's like, yeah, actually, it might take years, it might take more than might take decades, but you feel like there is a direct path someone could follow to get from here to there.
It would be a long and challenging path. I don't know if we can get there, but kind of the phrasing you hear is it's our North Star. That's our goal. Is like we want you to feel like you're playing the same game, whether you're
Yeah.
playing Java or Bedrock.
But at the same
Are
time,
you
I'm never going to visit the North
actually?
Star itself. I can go north a lot, but I'll hit the North
Yeah,
Pole. I won't ever hit the star.
yeah, it's true. You, you
you
keep
know,
keep going north, you're
yeah,
going to be
just
disappointed on some level.
exact. It's crazy.
Wait, I'm back where I started. What's going on?
Well, funnily enough, actually, just to be a bit of a nerd, when you hit the North Pole, every direction is north, but then
Yeah, that's
no, every
true. You
direction is
wouldn't
south.
continuously go
You
north.
can't hit north
Y-
anymore. Yeah,
Yeah, you would be on the geometric north, and you'd be like reaching out towards Polaris, like please, please.
should have brought some scaffolding with me.
Yeah, right. Yeah, scaffolding. We need some air for my cows to float me up there.
I feel like so to for a more fun so actually first of all what is something about working at Minecraft Mojang Studios that you think the average person might be surprised by? Because I feel like every career has something like this, and Minecraft developer must be one of the most opaque on inside outside jobs based on the fact that you do 5 minutes of work a day, working on something that could be done in 20 minutes if you're a modder, but you spend years working on it. But jokes aside, like there is this real disconnect between your what looks like's happening and what I assume is
Hmm.
what you're doing. So what is something you think the average person might be surprised about to do with your job?
It's a good question. And it's something, I see a lot because most people at the studio are not on Twitter or, any social media, but I am. So I see lots of these thoughts. And I think a lot of people don't understand just how much work goes into updates and how much of it is not visible work. Like it's the
Uh huh.
minority of the stuff that you're working on that is directly reflected in game. And you'll see people talk about, speculate about how big the studio is. And you have how many people working on this? And, back in, 2009, there was barely anyone. And look at all the great things that happened. And now you have so many people. It's like, well, most of the people at the studio are not directly working on new blocks and mobs. There's lots of people who are doing things like, managing, marketing campaigns or thinking about what type of creeper pajamas should be, in season next year, or working on other projects outside the game, or even like for Realms, for instance, a lot of the stuff we do is not things you'll directly see while you're playing. It's things like Google comes to us and like, hey, there's a new type of purchase receipt for when someone's subscription is lapsed, and you can put them in a certain state, and then it's more helpful for the player. Like, so that even that one is more customer facing than many things. But like, I had to do work to add a new type of lapsed subscription support for if you've purchased your realm on an Android device,
Uh huh.
and that takes a lot of time and it's
Yeah. Yeah.
valuable, but it's
That's.
not something like if you post that on Twitter, people are gonna be like, okay, who cares? Give me torches in my offhand, or whatever.
Just take the time that you would have spent making that realm work in lap subscription state on Android phones and give everyone the torches in their offhands, and then everyone's
Yeah.
happy, right? But in a kind of serious way, do you
Mm.
think like it could be done better so that more work is customer facing? Like if you obviously you can't actually just take a marketing person and say you go make health regeneration work the same way it does in Java. Like a HR manager, quickly get in here.
Mm.
You need to. But if you could be like, okay, we've got this many people. Why don't we dedicate more of them to working on blocks and items and mobs and gameplay mechanics and whatever else? Do you think there's a fun reason, or is it just like different business priorities, etc.?
Well, it's something you get a strong appreciation for when you join the studio. Like I had made an indie game before and published it in Xbox Live. Indie games And so I'm doing everything myself there. Well, I
Yeah.
didn't do all the artwork. I had a friend who did the artwork, but I was doing like all the voice acting and doing the programming and do the marketing. Like think about, oh, where can I advertise my game? You know, you're doing all this stuff, and you ship a game. Like people bought it, people played it, people made YouTube videos about it, so it was fun. But when you go join like a big studio like Mojang, it's interesting to see like what does a professional game designer do? Because everyone, like, you talk to pretty much any video game fan, I'm sure you're the same. You're like, well, I could design a good game. You know, I know what makes a game fun. I know what good gameplay loops might be. So why can't I be a video game designer? And that's kind of the dream job, I think, for aspiring game developers. Is like, I'm the ideas guy.
The
I have
one
lots
dream
of cool
job
ideas.
is to be the only dream job that actually exists in that reality is Todd Howard, and I bet he does a lot of programming too. Like he does have the skills in that way. But I bet he has the one dream job of just yeah, I am the ideas guy. I manage what happens, and I feel like there is no other unless you're an indie studio where you have to do everything else too. No one ever gets to be the idea man,
Yeah,
the the guy who just
because the
does the
reality
stuff.
is everyone has ideas, and that's the easiest and most fun part of game development is coming up with the ideas. The really hard part is doing those ideas well. So it's interesting to see it as an example of a specific role that would be easy to gloss over if you're a Minecraft fan going, why doesn't everyone work on blocks and mobs? So professional game designer, they spend a lot of time like writing wiki pages and Microsoft Word documents and proposals and thinking about new features from every single angle. And even on the Realms team, like we'll have designers thinking about there's some new stuff we're working on with, some gameplay implications. And the designers, like they're thinking blue sky, like, oh, what about this? What about that? What if it worked this way? What about that way? And my role as dev lead is like, well, this is going to take, 500 dev hours to do, and this one's like 200, and this one I don't think we can support long term. Blah blah blah. So there's all these. There's a healthy tension between creative wonder, practical considerations, and you're balancing back and forth between them. But it's interesting to see a professional game designer is really like it's a whole different mindset than like a programmer or an artist, a pixel artist. And it's the same with marketing too. Like I have friends who are in marketing, and you think like, oh, marketing, oh, the waste of time or whatever. Like, no, there's a whole like skill and technique to like, well, how do we market something effectively? Like, oh, there's a new Realms feature. Well, when should we start talking about it, and what should we say at what times? And like, if you do it well, people get really excited, and the community is really anticipating stuff. If you do it really poorly, then people like, like they feel terrible about things. They feel like you've broken your promises and taken things away from them. And anyway, all that to say, like, there's a lot of people at the studio and they're doing specialized things, but there's a lot of value there that's not always obvious for a Minecraft player.
I think the equivalent of that dream job idea where you're like, I want to do this, but actually there's a bunch of other things that go into supporting it is actually gaming YouTubers or streamers or whatever. As someone who's in that industry, people are like, I like to play games. Why am I not getting paid? I heard this guy makes $1 million a year. Why am I not getting paid for that much? I'm playing way more games than him. But it's like, well, actually, yeah, there's you're really doing a big job of marketing all the time. You're doing this job. You need to be. It's the interesting same thing that like every profession's public facing, this is what it looks like, has a whole stack of things existing below that, the actuality of doing that job or doing that thing. And I think that's incredibly interesting. But I do need to say, it's been an hour. I appreciate you joining me. This is longer than normal. It's been a riveting time. We'll have to share those deep secrets and mind fair thoughts off camera for now. But before we go, where should people find you? Would you like them to find you? Like on Twitter?
I was going.
Hopefully not
Yeah,
at the
you can find
supermarket.
me on Twitter. I'm CornerHardMC. Every place else I'm just CornerHard. There was already someone who was CornerHard on Twitter, as a photographer guy. But even if you go on like Threads, I'm CornerHard on there. I have like a placeholder on there.
Oh, nice. Got to get ready for
I was
that.
going to ask you before I go if I could ask you a question.
Yeah, I'd love
Someone
that.
who watches your channel and follows your
Yeah.
social media feed. Like you're an avid traveler, right? I'm
Yes.
constantly admiring how much you travel around and have all sorts of different experiences with pigeons and foxes and weird restaurants. And
Those are all near
strange
my
stuff.
house. There's the pigeon's just outside my house right now. I could get one for you if you want. I can try and lure one in here. But yeah, sorry. What's your question?
Where's a place you would like to travel to that you have not been yet?
Oh, this is a good one. So I feel like there's a list of places that everyone vaguely knows you want to go. Like I think like I know Alaska would be really interesting, but I think the ones that interest me most are kind of the ones that have this layer of, oh, there's a layer of trickiness to get there. Like I think Greenland, it's quite close to everything, but also 60,000 people live on the entire island. So like going somewhere like that really interests me. And so the one of those that is maybe the highest in the world has to be some of those specific island countries that have like 250,000 people each. The most realistic is something like Fiji or maybe like Micronesia or something. But I would love to go because maybe Antarctica even too. But I feel like the opposite. That I want to go the furthest place away that I can feel like I've been. Because the problem for being in the UK is the furthest away actual place geographically is New Zealand. But New Zealand feels so ridiculously similar because of the culture. Yeah, it's like I'm like, did I even leave? Did I just go for a 20-minute drive down the road or something? And so going somewhere that is like, yeah, this is an island culture that hasn't really interacted that much of the world, hasn't really globalized so much. I think those would be the most interesting. Or just somewhere remote that's close, like the Faroe Islands or Greenland, or even Alaska, like going anywhere around there would be interesting. I hear they have a Blockbuster. Yeah, right. Ooh, be a little bit of retro. They haven't got the memo up there. What about yourself? Is there somewhere on your travel bucket list right now that you're like,
Oh man,
just need to make?
I've thought Dubai looks really interesting to go to. I've never been there before. They have some. It's just a very, like you said, very different environment, very far away from where I live. Very different ecologically and like socially. So I think it'd be a fun adventure.
I love the idea of Dubai, not because of the ecology, because that like sounds like hell to me. Like I don't do well in heat, and it's like 40 something degrees there all the time. 100 and something if you're Fahrenheit. Look at me converting very poorly on the fly. But yeah, it's it's very to me the built up environment. Like I love places where it looks like humans shouldn't live, and we're like, yeah, we built a mega city here. We got skyscrapers going this high. That's how it's almost like the Vegas effect of like there is a ludicrousness that there's anyone here, let alone that there's this much here. I love places like that too. Kind of the opposite of what I just said, but
Yeah,
that's always
Phoenix, Arizona. I think it was like all ostrich farmers before air conditioning was invented.
yeah. I didn't hear this theory till recently, but the whole South, basically like third of the United States, is just before air conditioning. People just didn't do much during the summers there. It's crazy how much of the world has become habitable. There's also I love the paradox that the more AC we're adding to the world, the more we're heating it up and needing more AC. There's a funny We should just work out AC that works planet wide. We could solve so many problems that way, right? Just we need this many BTUs.
Shield. Put it in Lagrange point.
I mean, if we could just, rather than putting sunscreen on ourselves individually, what if we sunscreened the atmosphere, and then we'd all be safe all the time? This is, we should work on science ideas next time we talk. We clearly got some great ones.
Imagine on Earth there's a knob that adjusts the shutters for the sun, like we have an actual sun shield in space. Imagine the squabbles over the cold. Like, you think about it like in the office, like, oh, it's too cold in here, turn it up. Like
you'd have
that for the whole planet, all the fighting.
Yeah, that's it's I can imagine you'd have to do like individualized individual screens for each country, but then even in a country, it's like, the South wants it a little bit colder, the North wants it a little bit warmer. This is I'll keep coming up with ideas, and you keep working on it, implementing them, and then we'll split the money 50-50. It'll be great. Get your science guy in here. We got it sorted. But yeah, no, I really do look forward to meeting you if a Mindfest or MindCon, if I even dare to call it that, happens. I feel like that'd be the perfect way to full circle it. Just say, okay, we're calling it Minecon. We know we've been calling this Minecon, but we know you want this and that. But whatever it is, I'd love to. And if not, I'm sure I'll be in Seattle for. So I feel like there's a billion things always happening there because it's the home of all the tech. But yeah, I look forward to seeing you whenever that is. Thank you for this digital meet where you couldn't see my face. Reveal to everyone right now, because of the way I'm recording, he didn't get to see me, so he's staring into the void. But I've appreciated your attention and your answers today.
Oh, likewise. It was a lot of fun chatting with you.
It really was. It flew by, and now I have to get to my real obligations again. But yeah, have a good evening, morning, afternoon. One of those. Such a time difference,
Late
Jesus.
morning. Yeah, late
Yeah,
morning.
I'm working on dinner, and you're gonna have maybe lunch soon. It's crazy. Anyway, yeah, have a good one.
Thanks. You as well.